When I'm arguing that something doesn't match naturalism, I'm not arguing from ignorance. I'm arguing from what we know. If all the laws of chemistry and probability and physics tell us that life is not going to evolve from a warm little pond, I'm arguing from a scientific standpoint. Here's all the things we know, and that tells us that's never going to happen. So essentially, the evolutionist believes in bigger miracles than I do. I've got a God who can create. I have an outside power who creates the universe. They have an all-sufficient cause. They've got dumb luck, time and chance. When everything in chemistry is screaming that it's not going to happen, they've got to believe the impossible. In fact, I brought a quote with me.
Okay.
I brought two. This is one from Richard Dawkins. He wrote this in The Blind Watchmaker in his book, 1996. We can accept a certain amount of luck in our explanations, but not too much. The question is, how much? The immensity of geological time enables us to postulate more improbable coincidences than a court of law would allow. But even so, there are limits.
And so what he's saying there is that, and this is going back to the origins discussion, because this always comes up, because again, it's one of those things where we actually are opposed to each other. He's saying that you could not, in a court of law, prove...
He's saying it's indefensible. In a court of law, this is an indefensible position.
It's absurd.
It's absurd. However, given millions of years...
It must be true.
But even in millions of years, they don't have enough time. The improbability of what they're talking about is so incredibly ridiculous that even in was life 3.5 billion years ago, whatever number they put on it, that's not enough time. It's not enough time even for them. Because of everything we know about science, chemistry, probability, physics.
So then the question becomes, why do so many scientists, so many institutions, whether that's private institutions like a private university, or even public institutions, or even, dare I say, elements of our own government, why do they have such a strong commitment to naturalism?
Because the antithesis, or the opposite, the alternative, is untenable. If naturalism isn't true, Pandora's box opens up. Then anything could be true. It could be aliens. There could be a spirit called Gaia that's infusing the universe. Or there could be a God, like the God of the Bible, who actually created life.
Moreover, to whom all of a sudden we're accountable.
To whom we're all of a sudden accountable.
And that's Absolutely. A very uncomfortable thought.
A very uncomfortable thought. I mean, I've seen people railing against things I've written, and it automatically goes to sexual liberation. What? I'm talking about science. I'm not talking about your behavior patterns.
Except in a sense, you are. Yes.
Because if there's a God, then there's a God. And if that God is the God that we read about, oh my. I have another quote here.
Sure.
There's another famous quote. This is from Richard Lewontin, 1997, in an article called Billions and Billions of Demons. We take the side of science in spite of the patent absurdity of some of its constructs, in spite of its failure to fulfill many of its extravagant promises of health and life, in spite of the tolerance of the scientific community for unsubstantiated just-so stories, because we have a prior commitment, a commitment to materialism. I'm going to skip a little bit. Moreover, that materialism is absolute, for we cannot allow a defined foot in the door.
And so it sounds like what he's saying there is we have a commitment to materialism and naturalism because we do.
Well, no, because if you don't, you might allow a divine foot in the door. And if you allow that divine foot in the door, then all of a sudden there's a God, and that God demands worship, and that God demands obedience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there actually might be a hell waiting for people. Or heaven. And the naturalistic worldview, if I could call it that, has given people a way to completely cut God out of the equation. They think that, oh, I can explain where humans came from. We are just evolved fish. We're evolved, amoebas. We're evolved monkeys. Our behaviors are just contingent upon our evolutionary history. The thoughts in my brain actually are just pre-selected chemical signals that helped my fish and monkey ancestors have babies. Literally, it can reduce to a purely mechanistic life, which is really depressing.
Yeah.
Because I know on the inside, all humans know on the inside, they're not just a machine. That goes back to the ancient argument: is there a ghost in the machine? Mm-hmm. The old Police album, "Ghost in the Machine," which I listened to many times as a kid. Yeah, of course, there's a ghost in the machine, because the alternative is nothing. Humans know that there's a spiritual side to existence, because God created us that way. Humans know there is something out there. They might not be able to identify him by name. They might not know the nature of this thing, but there's this God yearning in people, and we see it all throughout all history. Now, God revealed himself according to the Bible, which I totally believe. Mm-hmm. He revealed himself to people, and therefore now I know this God. And I want to tell other people about this God, but his evolution thing is getting in the way in a lot of ways, which is why I want to explain that we're not arguing over some statistic.
Yeah.
It's really, we're arguing over a philosophy and different philosophies. All right, so the 3 take-home points for the audience. 1, know who you're talking to. 2, maintain and develop relationships. 3, pray. Yeah. But there's a 4th one, and I know you know this. I'm going to steal that book from you right now.
Okay.
That is, get yourself equipped. And so for the watchers and listeners, we're offering a free copy of the Creation Answers book. This is a fantastic resource. I mean, I've read this. I remember the first time I read this, my mind being blown. It's answering all these questions that I was asking. So essentially, many years ago, before I came on staff at CMI, which was 18 years ago, our scientists had listed out all the questions that they got. And they took the top 60 questions, which was 99% of the questions. And they put them into one book on purpose, so everyone would have a single resource of answers for tons of questions, like, what about carbon dating? What about dinosaurs? How do you get starlight here from outer space if the universe is only thousands of years old? All these questions that are going to come up in some conversations. And it's a great way to learn. So the Creation Answers book, I'd highly encourage all the listeners and all the watchers, just click on the link in the show notes, and it's going to come right up, free to download for you today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Carter. This has been wonderful.
Sheridan, thank you also. You added a lot to the conversation. I hope that we bless somebody with some encouragement.
Me too.